Operation Herrick, a decade later, 2002 to 2014. Op Herrick was the code name for all British military activity within Afghanistan between 2002 and 2014. The operation saw a total of 616 serious or very serious casualties among British armed forces and civilian personnel, peaking between 2009 and 2010. There were a total of 7,807 field hospital admissions, with around 28% of these being those wounded in action. There were 7,477 medical air evacuations during the 12-year operation. In the 12 years of Op Herrick, British forces suffered a total of 457 deaths. Over 150,000 British service personnel served in Afghanistan. Over 600 personnel suffered life-changing injuries. One of these was blind veteran Rob Long. To mark the 10th anniversary, he spoke to our military engagement and events officer, Rob Cottrell, about his memories of the operation.
Rob, absolutely lovely to chat to you this afternoon, and thanks for taking the time to discuss your experiences within Afghanistan while serving in the Royal Artillery 473 Special Ops Battery. In 2010, serving within the Royal Artillery, you were a frontline soldier within Afghanistan. What was your first impression of arriving within theatre, and what really struck you the most about actually being in Afghanistan?
Well, arriving in theatre, it's what you've trained for years. I joined the army in 2006, and I've done all my training. I've joined an elite battery, and now I've been posted to Afghanistan as part of a 6-man team to do what I felt was a really important job. High, close target surveillance, and it was a culmination of all that training and all those years. I was excited. I knew how dangerous it was. At that time in 2010, there was a huge IED threat. There was something like 1,000 IEDs being laid a month in the area of Sangin alone. It was ridiculously high, and we were there to combat that. And I felt like that was a really important job for not only the safety of our troops, but the safety of the area, because they're indiscriminate explosive devices. And we've seen the news of the soldiers coming back, but once you're out there, it's not just the soldiers getting injured, the British soldiers, it's the Afghan National Army guys, the Afghan National Police, the civilians. And I was excited and really proud to put into action, the training that I'd experienced. When you fly in, it's on a unmarked, almost like a civilian plane that you go from Brize Norton to Kabul. And it's at night with all the lights off, so you can't really see anything. But you get out there into Kabul, and you're met with a military airport, military base, and everyone there. There's no civvies there anymore. It's everyone from ISAF and the international forces are all there, and welcome to Afghanistan. There's you're now in a war zone. Then you start your period of acclimatization. So once we got off at Kabul, we went straight over to Bastion, and now you're out in the desert. At this point, it was daylight, and flying over, you see the desert, you see the mountains, you see all the terrain, you see the small villages, and arriving in Bastion, it's very different from the training environments I've been in, but Afghan is a very different climate. You got, especially when we flew over there in the spring. So we just had the winter, so all the crops are gone, and it's very flat, barren land, and the heat is just starting to rise a bit. So it's you can do all the training in these areas, but until you get there, you don't realize what you have to adapt to. You're shocked by the heat. It's completely different. But getting over there, coming from a 6-man team, we weren't training as a sort of battalion. We do get attached at battalion level to do the 6 months pre-deployment, but we were on quite a specialist mission, and it was rapid reaction. And when I got over there, it was great to see other small teams from my unit there get to see what they've done. We were halfway through the tour of Herrick 11 when we landed, so the plan was to go through Herrick 11, go through Herrick 12, and see where we are by the end of Herrick 12 with our team. It was potentially going to be a 10 to 12 month tour.
So in terms of your specific role in theatre, of what you're able to say, given the unit you're working with, what exactly were your tasks on a day-to-day basis?
So we had the covert and overt sides of the overt stuff was putting up eyes and ears and surveillance, very obvious surveillance positions around the fobs. This would just be to deter people, from getting too close to the fobs, because we'd have eyes on straight away. We'd understand their routes, we'd understand the enemy's movements, and that was getting outside of the wire, because at this point, missions going outside of the wire were starting to slow down a little bit towards the summer of 2010. It was most because of the IED threat. That was their tactic at slowing it. You could barely move in Afghanistan. You wouldn't be able to walk down a road without spotting a potential IED. And every day we were getting contacted, and every time someone was going out the wire, like there was someone getting injured within a 10-kilometer zone of the fob. So we put out overt cameras, very, very obvious, so we could catch guys who were just being completely brazen and, getting as close to the fob as possible. The covert side, there's not as much I can talk about, but finding valuable targets, finding caches of weapons, and basically that sneaky beaky running around, finding where this threat's coming from.
So it would be fair to say that you were, deployed at a time within Afghanistan, which was highly kinetic, quite punchy. You were subjected to quite a lot of small arms, RPG, indirect fire as well from IEDs.
Yeah,
so
straight away.
Yeah.
It was straight away. So when we landed, because we weren't, what happens if you land as a regiment, when you're doing your acclimatization, you're all together, and there's big areas of where the UK forces are stationed together in massive tents in Bastion, and they all acclimatize together. Whereas we're coming in as a 6-man team, so they had to find us a place, and the only place that was spare was right next to where the MERT team lands. So as soon as we got to Bastion, we were seeing injured soldiers coming in with the most devastating injuries every day. Like, you get to Afghanistan, as soon as we arrived, there's guys coming off the helicopter. There was Black Hawks going in and out every hour, with guys coming off with, Cat 1 injuries. They're missing legs, missing arms, complete, disfigurements. And after that, after the short period of acclimatization, that's when we flew out to where our area of operations was going to be, on Pharmacy Road. It was right off the Afghan National Highway. Obviously, that's a key area to protect from the IED threat, so that civilians and the country can run through the main highway. And even landing there, come under fire from RPGs straight away in the helicopter. And as soon as you're out the helicopter, stand to, you jump up on a Sanger, and welcome to Afghanistan. This is it. Straight away, you've got to jump in there and react and become part of the team of the lads in that force that have been there for 6 months, 3 months already. And, they've experienced losses. They've, a lot of the guys have injured. They've taken incoming fire and fixed themselves up, and they're still there.
Yeah, it's it's tough. It's tough.
Yeah.
In terms of when you were out on patrol, and if we move forward to what happened to you on the 8th of July, can you talk us through the before, the during, and the kind of after process, and to where you are now?
6 of us went out that day to conduct more of the covert surveillance side of things, and we set up, so you have your sort of electronic countermeasures, and you have your you have all your weaponry and everything, and your mission critical equipment. We set up before first light. The idea was to get in there before first light. We had a few kilometers to go outside the fob. As we started making it to our target area, we could see some activity. We could see some very young spotters. They had, they had no business being in this area with a motorbike. Being how young they were, it was clear what they were. We decided to push on because of the time constraints we were under and the job we had to do. We got to our target area. We conducted the job we were supposed to be doing. And unfortunately, my patrol commander that day, Sam Robinson, he triggered an IED. He triggered an IED, and first light was just coming up, and that was the last time I ever saw light again. Sam, unfortunately, was killed straight away. He was, he was on top of the IED, so he got killed straight away. Another colleague from the unit, he was injured as well. He was he had to be medevaced, and my left eye got ripped out straight away by the blast. My right eye was damaged too, but it wasn't, I could still remember flashes, and it was still working enough to get me back to safety with the rest of the team and get medevaced back to the nearest fob. And I was team medic for that day, but every guy in the unit is medically trained, and thank God for that, because we knew what the sort of injuries are going to potentially be, and they did an amazing job at getting me back within that golden hour and doing the right thing by sort of leaving certain injuries as they were, wrapping up what they could. And I remember getting back to the fob, and due to the training and due to the essence of what we were doing, making noise out in the field is not what you want to do. But now I'm back in the safety of the fob. That's when I could assess my injuries and really let go. And I do remember letting out a huge scream of pain, and then once I did that, the pain started completely overwhelming me, and having my colleagues next to me, grabbing my hand, telling me to calm down, telling me it'll be all right, giving me reassurance, I'm back now. And that settled things down quite a lot until I was able to get the morphine and the sort of medication I needed to get me in a bit of a more stable state.
I think one of the things from having quite a conversation with you that struck me was a phrase that you said. The last thing you remember seeing was you're looking up at the sky, the Afghan scenery, but also your colleagues before you actually lost your complete sight, and how proud you were wearing the uniform and actually doing the job that you trained for so hard to do, and that you also did it with your colleagues. That I think that's really something to be proud of as well.
I mean, what military humour's like. It's what gets you through it gets you through the worst of it. And I don't remember as much of it. I remember flashes from the IED instrument, but what I remember about that tour and being a part of the army, I remember the laughs we used to have, the jokes, the smiles on the guys' faces, and the professionalism of when they were doing their job. They're the images I remember of Afghanistan. I remember of being in the British Army. That's what stays with me for the rest of my life. It's not the incident that ended my career. It's the experiences I got from that, and that was one of the greatest things about the British Army, and that stuck with me through this sight loss, through when the times get dark. It's one of the things that's really stuck with me about my journey in the British Army and my time in Afghanistan. To remember that you can smile and you can turn things around and have a perspective on things and laugh with your mates and make it through to the next day.
Rob, thank you very much. Thank you very much for that. There was a highly kinetic period of time in Afghanistan where we lost a lot of good soldiers, men and women, and of course Afghan forces took a significant toll as well whether it's the Afghan police, etc. So, thank you for sharing your experience with us, telling us what it was like over in Afghanistan for yourself.
Yeah, thank you. I'm incredibly proud of what I did. Obviously, it's not the way I wanted my career to have ended, but thanks to blind veterans, I've been able to get my life back and make the most out of life. And a lot of that I want to do in honor of those guys who didn't get to make it back. And that's another reason I can keep a big smile on my face, is because what they would give to be here and what they sacrificed was the ultimate sacrifice. And I want to honor that in living my life to the fullest.